We are not, second or third citizen. We are, part of American society. We are also United States citizens.
Tonight, Mid-Missourians gathered condemning racism against the Asian community.
We are not here to raise our voice of anger. We are here to, hear our wounds.
There to share their own stories. Remember, 8 people killed in an attack on 3 Asian-owned businesses in Georgia. Tonight, a call for action.
We need to focus our future.
This is KOMU 8 News at 10.
Coverage you can count on. KOMU 8 News starts now.
It's been 3 days since news broke of that deadly attack in Georgia. Tonight, Mid-Missourians gathered to talk about their own experiences, share their own stories. Good evening. I'm Noah Klein. Thanks for joining us tonight. KOMU 8's Caitlin Specketer is in the newsroom now, and she attended that vigil. Caitlin, what do we know about tonight's events?
The vigil took place outside of City Hall. Several dozen people gathered to raise awareness and show support. One MU International student came forward to encourage equality.
Black people, Asian people, white people, we're all equal. We're all human beings.
It was a somber start with 8 minutes of silence to pay respects to the 8 lives lost during the shootings in the Atlanta area. The shooting earlier this week is believed by many to be one of an increasing number of racist attacks targeting people of Asian descent. The vigil was held to condemn hate crimes and racism against individuals of Asian heritage. Those attending brought signs and lit candles to show their support. Many emphasized the importance of spreading awareness and encouraging change. One organizer talked about wanting people to move forward and to better themselves for the future.
Right now, America is kind of lost. So we need to focus on American dream, and we need to better society altogether. No matter what the color of skin is, no matter the gender is, we need to focus our future. So that's why we are here.
Others came forward to share their thoughts and personal experiences. Organizers say the vigil is not about raising voices in anger, but rather healing wounds. In the newsroom, Caitlin Specketer, KOMU 8 News.
All right, Caitlin, thank you very much. At one of the spas in Georgia tonight, there was a growing memorial. Today, family members of the owner of Young's Asian Massage Club in suburban Atlanta visited the spa. The owner, Xiao Jiatan, was killed in Tuesday's attack, along with 3 others at the business in Cherokee County, Georgia. Behind me are the names of the victims who were killed. We're going to read them off one by one, along with what we know about them. Delana Ashley Yan was a mother of 2. Paul Andre Michaels was an Army veteran. Xiao Jie Tan and her family were looking forward to celebrating Tan's 50th birthday later this week. Dao Ye Feng was also killed in Cherokee County. The following people were killed in Atlanta. We don't know much about these victims at the time because the names were released today. We do know their names and their age. Soon Chung Park was 74. Soon Cha Kim was 69. Young Hae View was 63. Hyung Jung Grant was 51. A GoFundMe campaign for Grant's children just passed $2 million. She leaves behind 2 sons, including Randy Park, who started the GoFundMe. You see it here in the fundraiser description. Park says he and his brothers are the only ones in the U.S. He says the tragedy is, quote, something that should never happen to anyone, He says the money will cover living expenses and his mother's funeral. Today, President Joe Biden and Vice President Harris visited Georgia. It was a pre-scheduled trip to celebrate progress in the fight against COVID-19. But instead, the two met with Asian American community leaders to show support after Tuesday's attacks. The president took the time to publicly denounce anti-Asian acts of hate. He said hate and violence are often hidden in plain sight.
It's often met with silence. That's been true throughout our history. But that has to change, because our silence is complicity.
Everyone has the right to go to work, to go to school, to walk down the street and be safe, and also the right to be recognized as an American, not as the other, not as them, but as us.
Well, they denounced acts of hate against Asians. Both stopped short of calling Tuesday's event a hate crime, but they noted that whatever the motivation of the shooter, the killings come amid rising hate crimes against Asian Americans in the United States. 2 arrest warrants in Cherokee County were unsealed today in the case against the man suspected of Tuesday's shooting. The warrants show he faces a total of 11 felony charges in relation to the shootings at the spa in suburban Atlanta, including 4 murder charges. Atlanta police say he also faces 4 murder charges there. Court date has not been set at this time. The attacks in Georgia this week come after an increase in attacks on people of Asian descent across the United States. The group Stop AAPI Hate says it has received nearly 4,000 reports of racially motivated attacks against Asian Americans from March of last year through February of this year. The group says this is likely just a fraction of the number of attacks that have happened. Meanwhile, in Northern California, police and communities are on alert with that increase. San Francisco police officers are stepping up with high visibility patrols in predominantly Asian communities, hoping to restore a sense of safety after those attacks. California Governor Gavin Newsom said it's time to learn from history.
The idea that people have to live in fear because their race, their ethnicity, because the language they speak, because of their age or gender, the idea that we are today in 2021 still having conversations we were having in 1881, a year before the Chinese Exclusion Act, in 1882, is painful and infuriating at the same time.
Governor Newsom's comments come on the heels of 2 major attacks in the San Francisco area this week. A 76-year-old victim was hit in the face this week. She said she's traumatized and can't see out of her right eye. Another elderly victim is in the hospital with nose and neck fractures.
Well, we had a lot of wet weather this weekend.
Okay, Jacob Vanderpool, thank you very much. Today, a mass vaccination event in Cole County aimed to vaccinate Jefferson City School District employees. Teachers and school staff were given priority to register for the event. The Cole County Health Department had 2,300 vaccines available. They only expected to use about 2,000 vaccines, with the rest going to Jefferson City clinics next week. Around 700 Jefferson City School District staff signed up to receive doses.
After losing a big part of our school year last year and a lot of activities, I think everybody's just hoping to get back to normal as soon as possible. And if this is what we have to do it, then that's a great thing.
18 Jefferson City schools were released 3 hours early today for staff to get their vaccine. One superintendent told KOMU 8 News he recognizes the sacrifice made by staff and family due to the schedule change. Meanwhile, the CDC has just updated its guidelines for social distancing in schools. The agency now says staying 3 feet apart while wearing masks is enough. The recommendations come after a study was published last week comparing COVID cases among students and staff in Massachusetts public schools. It showed transmission rates in districts that required physical distancing of 6 feet were similar to those that allowed 3 feet. Despite the change, the CDC says wearing masks and proper ventilation are still vital. A local chapter of the National Black Nurses Association hosted a webinar that encouraged the importance of the COVID-19 vaccine to an underrepresented audience tonight. The webinar featured a panel of health professionals and targeted Black and brown communities who can sometimes be uncomfortable asking questions to professionals in a white-dominated field. The Mid-Missouri Black Nurses Association president said the vaccine is not just important for minority communities, but for everyone.
Even though we are trying to target colored people, minority, this is for everyone because we are in this together. The virus does not discriminate, so we shouldn't. And then this is for the good of our community.
Ananobi said the Mid-Missouri BNA plans to host more webinars that address issues such as mental health for Black and brown communities. Taking a look at news from around the nation here, the trial of Derek Chauvin, the officer charged in George Floyd's death, will stay in Minneapolis. The judge rejected Chauvin's lawyer's motion to delay and relocate the proceedings. Defense lawyers argued a $27 million settlement between City Council and Floyd's family prejudiced their client in the middle of jury selection. The judge denied those requests this morning. The judge also says he will allow certain portions of the arrest video to show Floyd's medical condition.
That is medical evidence. So we don't have the benefit of on-the-scene medical vital signs on May 25th. So the May 6th, 2019 case is relevant only to that extent.
Chauvin has pleaded not guilty to charges of third-degree murder, second-degree unintentional murder, and second-degree manslaughter. Also today, an eighth person has accused New York Governor Andrew Cuomo of sexual harassment. Alyssa McGrath is a current aide to for Governor Cuomo. Today, she told the New York Times Cuomo looked down her shirt and made suggestive remarks. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who represents New York, says Cuomo should resign, saying he lost the confidence of New Yorkers. Cuomo has denied sexual harassment allegations. Back here in mid-Missouri, officials now say a homeowner shot and killed a suspect in a home invasion in Northeast Columbia. This is a story we first brought you here at noon. It happened near the intersection of Rice Road and Fair Lane around 8:45 this morning. In a news release, officers say they found the suspect with life-threatening injuries, died on the scene. A KOMU8 News reporter saw 6 Columbia police officers and 1 highway patrol unit were on scene this morning. CPD says it's still working on this investigation. Still ahead for us. Have you been having trouble sleeping lately? Well, you're not alone. Ahead for us, what experts say is to blame. Welcome back. Gas prices are pumping up. 44% from prices at this time last year. Right now, it costs $2.77 for a gallon of gas. A year ago, that same gallon of gas cost just under $2 for drivers. Lower supply of gas throughout the pandemic and a higher demand of oil from more drivers is causing that price increase. That's according to an economist KOMU8 News spoke with earlier today. One Mid-Missouri driver says the high price of gas has an impact on his job.
It definitely affects everything because especially somebody like me that travels a lot, so I use a lot of fuel, so it adds up pretty quick. Got to drive no matter what, so I mean, whatever gas prices are, I got to pay for it.
Missouri AAA said they expect gas prices to increase more. However, the price increase should slow down for the next month. Have you had a rough night's sleep lately? I know I have. Researchers say COVID-19 could be to blame. Doctors say COVID-19 has negatively hurt our sleep as it is essential for good health. Sleep experts say the lasting fatigue of lockdowns and stress can hurt you. In recent studies done by the APA, 2/3 of Americans have had altered sleep patterns due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the virus itself, Mid-Missourians and sleep lab directors both told us how sleep patterns have changed.
Sort of like feeds on itself and aggravates itself.
They're just not able to do quite as much as they used to do.
You start out, your schedule is just a little off, and then it gets a little bit more off.
The National Sleep Foundation recommends adults getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep while teens get 8 to 10 hours.
Well, last weekend we sprang forward.
All right, Jacob, thank you. FedEx says it's seen a big boom in business with online shopping. How much sales grew after the break? Welcome back. Let's talk consumer news. FedEx says business is booming. FedEx reported its quarterly earnings today, saying it brought in $21.5 billion in sales. That's up 20% for the quarter. The company also says net income has more than doubled. It credits an increase in online shopping over the pandemic. Facebook and Instagram are back up after an outage earlier today. Facebook announced the outage in a tweet, saying it affected several platforms. A Facebook spokesperson says it was because of a technical issue. Users reportedly had trouble accessing Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, and WhatsApp. It was resolved in about an hour. It's not clear how many people had issues with the apps. A former Tolton standout had a chance to advance to the national championship for Mizzou wrestling tonight. Highlights from Brock Mueller's semifinal match up next in sports.